What is up, Nickel City Mafia? Welcome to the fourth edition of a special series that Chris and I have been doing, talking about all different types of fantasy football leagues. And joining me today is Chris Caldwell, who knows all about these leagues. And today we're going to get into the best ball leagues. What the heck those are, I don't know. Tell me, what the heck is a best ball league? Never heard of it.
Yeah, man. So this is what I feel to be like the new hotness of fantasy football. It offers you a little bit of that quick satisfaction, and it gives you the most of what we enjoy the most in fantasy football. I'll ask just to see what Mike, what's the best part of fantasy football to you? What's the one thing that you love doing?
Oh, it's the draft. It's the research and the
Absolutely.
draft.
The research and the draft. So, you ever have those leagues where like, you get together with your friends, you do the draft, and then you then sit through your 17-week season, and there's always those 3, 4, 5 teams. They don't really make roster moves. They don't want to trade. They don't want to pick people up. And you're like, hey, why'd you even do this? They'll all say the same answer. Well, I wanted to get together with my friends. I wanted to draft, but I don't really have time or care to, put my team together. Why would I do that? I got bored of it, right?
Yeah.
Best Ball League solves that problem. So Best Ball League serves two purposes. You basically do a draft, as everyone knows exactly what a fantasy football draft is. As soon as the draft is over, the league is locked. You can't touch a single thing in the league. It is locked. There is a computer program that goes through and it takes your best QB score of the week, your two best running back scores of the week, your two or three best wide receiver scores of the week, your best tight end score of the week, and it adds them all up without you doing a single thing. It gives you a score for that week, 130 points, whatever it may be, and then move on. So once you draft that team, it's over. I mean, your fun is going back and checking the standings and seeing how you're doing. But you don't have to worry about, I had an injury there. Who should I pick up? Who should I start? I can't decide. Now, you might say, well, that's kind of boring. I kind of like setting my lineup. Well, the whole point of best ball is you do high volume, right? So the best part is drafting. So let's do more of it, right? So a lot of best ball players, what they'll do is they'll say, well, I'll go ahead and join, 10 or 20 best ball leagues, 10, $20 a piece. And I'll do one draft a week, and then I'll get better at drafting. I'll understand a lot of, where players are going and whatnot. But then, hey, I can do 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 drafts. Maybe I want to do one a night. Maybe it's what I want to do for 30, 40 minutes before I go to bed every night. That's really fun to me. But I obviously can't keep up with that many teams. Do a best ball team. The league's locked. You don't have to worry about it. But you get all that fun of drafting, and you can gamble on it. You can do leagues with strangers. You can do leagues with people and draft away, and then not a worry in the world. You can just check your scores each week. What do you
Oh,
think of that?
I absolutely actually love that. So it takes away, you know how you always draft, three, four, five receivers. You can only start two or three, and it's always the guy in your bench that goes off, especially in important games, especially towards the playoff time. You're trying to get into the playoffs. This takes that away. That just like I don't have to worry about that anymore. And I
Mhm.
don't have to be kicking myself when the guy on my bench goes off because they're just going to pick the best two or three. What is it? Two? I mean, I'm sure it depends on how you set up the league, right?
Mhm.
Whether you can start two or three wide receivers, just like any typical league. But I actually really like that. I mean, again, it's for me, it's always that high on draft day. So excited about draft, and once that draft's over, you're ready for the season to start. And it's not like the last league we did was that the dynasty league, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't take 3 or 4 weeks to get through a draft.
No.
You're done in. Are these similar to redraft leagues where you're going through and you're on the clock for a short amount of time?
Yep. 30 seconds. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So typically, yeah, the best ball leagues, people that do these tend to do a really high volume of them. So, they don't want them to last an hour and a half or 2 hours. And it actually makes it pretty cool because they typically do like 30-second or 45-second picks. So it's like it's a thrill. It's like super, you know, super exciting and fast paced. And like you said, so what I use best ball drafts for is, say I have a couple redraft leagues coming up, I'll crank out 20, 30 best ball drafts in the weeks leading up to my redraft leagues, because you're going to start seeing the same patterns. What rounds can I get people in? I've now drafted 10, 15, 20 teams that I no longer have to worry about, but I'm in an actual league for actual money with actual people that actually care. And I get a lot of practice building a team that I like. So I'll draft 20, 30 teams and I'll go back and look, oh, what strategy did I like the best? What worked out best for me? So that way, when I'm at my friend's house having beer and pizza, I already have a plan, and I have a plan that I know works because I've already pulled it off 3 or 4 times in another draft. It is the absolute best way to practice fantasy football, also get a little gambling in, and we all love to draft. Let's do more of it.
I love that. So talk to me about how deep are the rosters here? Because obviously injuries happen during the year, and these other leagues give you the ability to pick up waiver wire picks. And since it's locked right now, are they deeper rosters?
Yeah, so typical roster on like a redraft or a keeper league, anywhere from, as shallow as 14 or 15 in some cases, up to like 18 is kind of like the highest you'll see. Best ball, you're looking at, 18 to 22. So you're going to have that extra fluff on the back. But the cool thing about best ball is, once the draft is over and it's locked, say there's that player that wasn't drafted that absolutely just goes nuclear and goes off, no one has him,
No
right?
one has them.
No one
Yeah,
has him, and it's
yeah.
not going to change, right? So those that's kind of the cool thing. Like, you'll see that player come out of nowhere, that undrafted player. It's cool to like go back and look through your leagues and say like, oh, phew, I don't have him, but no one has him in any of my leagues. I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about it, right? So, yeah, like you said, the leagues are a little bit deeper. So, say it's like a one QB league that you start. Typically, you're going to draft at least two QBs. Probably three is the best strategy. If you start two running backs, you're probably going to want to roster 5, 6 running backs, because you want this is there a lot of statistics go into this, right? You want to have a nice evenly distributed team. You don't want to only draft two running backs, because then on buys or when you have an injury, you're screwed, right? You're not going to score any points for that position that week. So it's there's a lot of tools online. I'm not going to know exactly which ones, but I always do like a yearly reminder. But before I do my best ball leagues, you can just YouTube or Google, best ball team constructions, and it'll tell you based on the previous year statistics, drafting X amount of QBs versus running backs versus receivers versus tight ends, what combination of each will give you the highest predicted point outcome. So there's a lot of stat nerds that go way too deep into this, and it just makes me, I love it. So, yeah, use the resources that are out there, toy around with it. Best ball is definitely a way where you can be very aggressive versus very safe. Like doing a nice balanced roster of kind of the same amount of each position is a nice safe way to go. Or you can say, hey man, I'm going to get Patrick Mahomes early, and I'm going to count on that I'm going to ride him, right? So obviously I'm not going to get another quarterback that's really good, because you're hoping Mahomes takes you to the promised land. Maybe you'll throw in like a Daniel Jones way later just to have that little bit of security. But there's that pull and tug where you need to, put the right amount of, I don't want to say dollars, but right amount of investment into each position. And you can kind of be, you can do exactly with that what you want. So, you might say, hey, this best ball team, I'm going super strong running backs. I know I'm going to kill it. But I'm going to wait on receivers, and we'll hope I get really lucky at the end and pick a couple of guys later that really hit. So it's really cool. There's tons of different strategies, and it's good to do a ton of research, draft, get better at drafting, and then set it and forget it.
Are there limits on the position groups? For instance, in this, a lot of leagues have like you can only draft two tight ends. You can only draft four wide receivers. Is the same for this, or is it just like you draft if you want to draft 10 wide receivers of your 22 roster spots, go for it.
Yeah, typically it depends what website. Some websites do, some websites don't. More often than not, they do put limits, but the limits are it's high, right? The limit is pretty high. It's like you'd have to be egregiously drafting to hit the limit, and that's so they set those so people don't cheat. You don't have someone, say you have three buddies that join the same league,
Oh yeah.
and then one of them just says, "Well, I'm going to draft 17 quarterbacks," right? Because some of these leagues are not just against 10 or 12 people. They'll do like a 2,000 person league where
Holy cow.
it's like 100, 200 10-person leagues, and then they do like a playoff bracket and all this stuff. There's
Gotcha.
there's a lot into it. So they try to minimize like the collusion and the cheating. So yeah, typically there's limits.
So you're doing enough of these drafts, like you said, you're ready to go in your redraft league, in your keeper league,
Mhm.
and any league you're playing in. So absolutely like it. So this is what I'm going to check into, because the prior one, the Dynasty League, is a big investment,
A lot of
but
time
it does
commitment. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it does give you the most control. You are the GM of your team, and I'm going to look into that. But it is a huge investment. This one I can do all day, so love it.
Yeah, so I will say the only difference in strategy for best ball leagues is there's better outcomes in best ball leagues if you go for players who have extreme polls, right? So your very own Buffalo Bill, Gabe Davis, outstanding best ball player, because when Gabe Davis has a game, Gabe Davis has a game, right?
Yeah,
So he's a most frustrating typical fantasy football player ever, because he'll go off for 25, 30 points and you say, oh shoot, I'm going to play him 3 weeks in a row, and he duds out, right? If he
yeah,
does that for your best ball team, you don't give a crap, right? He got you that high end 35-point game. The next 3 weeks the computer just says, we won't use him because we had someone in there collecting better points than that. So best ball, you want to shoot for those players that have those really high upsides. You don't want like the typical like ho hum, safe players that kind of score you 7, 8, 10. Their best score of the year is 14, 15 points. Will that be on your starting best ball roster a couple times? Sure. But what's really going to set you apart is those ceiling weeks. You want those big play receivers that, can catch that 50-yard touchdown, those big play running backs that can break off the big run, and they can get in your starting lineup with one play, right? So that's kind of what you're after. You're after high highs and low lows in best ball, rather than that safety, because the safety comes natural with the setup of the league, how it automatically puts your top players in. Now, for a redraft league, I kind of like safety, right? Because if you're going to put a person in, you don't want them to dud out on you. But in best ball, nope, shoot for the moon.
I I should ask you this, because I think I know the answer. You are going against another team each week, right? It's not like a total points throughout the end through the year,
You can
is
do
it?
it both ways.
You can do it both. Okay.
Yeah. So,
In the leagues you play in, how does it set up?
so I don't play any best ball leagues where it's like a typical, 10 or 12 guys, and we, get together and do the draft, and then we just walk away from it. I don't play those. You can, pretty much um, every website has a setting, like Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper, whatever, CBS. They all have a setting you can click that says make this best ball scoring. So if you'd like to do it that way, say, you've had this league forever, but people are married with kids, yada, yada, yada. You love the draft, but people don't really pay attention. Go click the best ball button. It'll score it differently for you. You don't really have to pay attention after your draft. But there's certain websites now that are made for high volume drafts, high volume best ball players. Underdog is my favorite one. So Sleeper has best balls. Underdog is absolutely by far the best one. They have tons of really high volume, and they have you know 10-person leagues, 12-person leagues, they have this thing called Best Ball Mania that's like I think the winner gets $1 million. It's like
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of teams, and it's you don't play against any one person. It takes just a cumulative score of the whole year, and the top, however many get paid. So it's really cool. There's tons of different ways to play this, and because it is a cumulative score, typically it lets you do those really big tournaments where you kind of just watch yourself go up and down the leaderboard, as the year progresses.
Actually, I actually like that because I've been in many leagues that did a cumulative score. You weren't going against somebody week to week, and it was just who had the most points towards the end of the year.
Mhm.
And then, like you said, you could have those huge, you know, 200 different leagues, and then the best people in each league, whatever you want to say, get into that final round, going for that $1 million. So good stuff. I actually like this one. So again, I think you said the Dynasty is your favorite, right?
Mhm.
Does that still hold true even after we're talking about this?
So yeah, Dynasty and Best Ball are my two favorite. Dynasty because you have that investment, the time you put in, the players you draft and hang on to for 3 or 4 years. You get to really know those players really well. You kind of get to fall in love with them. You have an investment into those emotionally and monetarily, right? Best ball is fun in a different way because you crank out so many drafts and you can try out so many different strategies and like these really cool apps like Underdog. You can draft on your phone, you can draft on the computer, and it's super cool because, like I said, this is made for like high volume. It keeps track of all of your leagues that you drafted and it gives you, hey, you've done 40 drafts. You have Jonathan Taylor in 30% of your leagues. You have Josh Allen in 20% of your leagues. It
Oh,
gives you a
nice.
stat of, how many leagues you own these players in, like how invested are you into that player. So typically what people do is, they'll do, you know, 10, 50, 100, 200 drafts. And then you can kind of just look at your top drafted players and essentially that's who you're rooting for, right? Because that'll give you the most big hits throughout all your best ball teams. So I don't think I've ever drafted 100 teams, but I usually draft like 30, 40, 50 teams the past couple years, and then I look at my top 10 most drafted players, and then that's kind of your team in a way, right? That you're rooting for. So it's so interesting. There's huge prizes out there to be won. The guy that I follow, for best ball advice, he won 150K last year in an
Wow.
underdog tournament. So there's money to be had out there, and yeah, it's really fun. And practice makes perfect, and this is the easiest way to practice.
Awesome. So there's tools out there that we've mentioned in some of our videos, but the best tool is coming to Nickel City Mafia and watching Rick and Chris weekly. So come check out these guys. They do live shows. You can ask questions, they'll answer them live. We have a Discord channel that you can join and ask them questions all week long. They will answer you. So good stuff. Chris, thank you once again. This has been so much fun. And I'll see you on the next show in the near future.
All right, man. Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye now.